So this is going to be the last video in the Conceiving of the Divine sort of series that I'm doing here. And I realized that I've spent a lot of time sort of just criticizing theistic beliefs or arguments or what have you. But I do have to put that aside. And consider the other person's point of view. A lot of people believe in these things. A lot of people are theists. Sure, in part because it helps them sort of make sense of reality, but it also helps them possibly deal with reality. It gives them comfort, gives them hope, gives them a light at the end of the tunnel that, depending on how strong their faith is, can never be extinguished. It's an eternal optimism that they can hold on to forever. And that way I get it. I see it in my own mother. Her belief in God helps keep her going, helps give her a drive to go on, helps her see hope where everything may be hopeless. Now, I too have an eternal optimism. It's a different sort of optimism that I can get into in another video, and that's without invoking any god. But this is more to focus on the theist side. Believing in a god helps many theists sort of hold on to a sense of morality, hold on to a sense of hope, and then also gives them a sort of guiding principle to adhere to. So it's like I get it in that way. I can respect it. I mean, if you're the kind of Christian or theist in general who is much more inclined to say that, look, believing in my God gives me hope, and I don't want that taken away from me, I get it. My problem is with theists who try to push their beliefs on other people. But when it comes to the theist who really is just looking for something to give them hope and comfort, okay. I mean, I don't really expect that I'm ever going to change your mind. And for those reasons that I've laid out, I probably wouldn't want to. If that really is the sole thing that really at the end of the day gives you that hope and the drive to go on, then, okay. Because I can't expect everyone to sort of look at things the same way I do, or to let go of their beliefs, especially when they are very near and dear to them. That's why a lot of people are personally offended when you attack a religious belief in general, because even though it is a general idea, it's a general idea that they hold dear to them, to their own well-being. So I get it. I mean, I don't get it 100% personally because I am not of that mindset, but I can sort of appreciate it. I can understand why it is so integral to a person to sort of hold fast to their beliefs, especially when it comes to religion. And like myself, I've tried to recently open my mind up to such a point where I could possibly conceive of the divine, which is the entire overarching theme of this video, this sort of 4-part video series. And when I did, I almost got a sense of what that's like, to believe in this sort of all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, every perfect and good thing all wrapped up in one all-powerful, omnipresent, omniscient being, omnipotent being. And when you believe in that sort of being, it gives you hope. I can imagine. I mean, in that moment where I got very close to sort of imagining it, to almost being in its presence, or believing myself to be in its presence. I essentially tried to see if I could have a sort of divine revelation. And at the end of the sort of at the end of this sort of exercise, all I really came away with was that my mind can possibly construct such an idea, and because I am holding that idea in my mind, like those emotions I can attach to that idea. But at the end of the day, at the end of that exercise, I still came away with the feeling, with the idea, that it wasn't really an all-powerful, all-loving God that I was experiencing, but sort of my own thoughts, my own mind trying to conceive of that thing. Now, for theists, that thing is real. And I get why they want that thing to be real, because in what is potentially a universe that doesn't really care about them, because it's a universe and it's not sentient, so it cannot care. But in the cold darkness of space, in the finality of death, and in the potentially painful experiences of life, believing in an all-powerful God that wants the best for you and is there to love you and care for you, I can understand why you would want to hold on to that belief. And I can understand why holding that belief would be important to you, and maintaining that belief, because it is the one thing that gives you hope for a lot of people. And so, I mean, what I've been describing in all these videos is essentially just why I don't believe. But even as you see, even as you see in these videos, I'm not giving 100% of my reasons. It's sort of, I didn't really get into the intelligent design argument as much as I could have. I didn't really get into the more logical fallacy side of it, because this video series is really just me thinking out loud in a way, but trying to do it in a way which has a cohesive sort of logic running through it. The ideas lead into one another, and there is some sort of sense to these videos. They're not just sort of me randomly talking into the camera about this, that, and the other thing. But like in this video, it's really me wanting to just sort of, how do I say, present an olive branch, really, but also sort of because how do I say it? You do still have to understand the other person's point of view. You can't just assume that the other person is wrong in everything that they're talking about. You can't assume any malice on the other person's part. We're simply two people, or me and whatever theist, we're simply people with differing views. And so I thought it would be important to make a video here where I'm sort of taking stock of what a theist believes, but also why they believe it and why it is important to them. Which is part of why I named this video, the Conceiving of the Divine, powerful and personal, because for a lot of people, the divine is personal, especially for Christians, for Muslims, for Jews, for Hindus, for Sikhs, for Buddhists, depending on the form of Buddhism. It's a deeply personal belief, and it's sure it is attached to something which they believe to exist on a metaphysical sense, but that metaphysical thing holds meaning and importance and like an emotional weight for people. And it's kind of to go back to my sort of exercise in sort of holding that idea and believing it to be a real thing, I couldn't get myself to really believe that what I was conceiving of was a real metaphysical thing. But for a lot of people it is. And that metaphysical truth being, or that metaphysical thing being, the existence of the metaphysical thing holding true is important to the very sort of fabric of their lives, of their mental state, of their well-being, of their mental health. You can word it in any number of ways, but that thing being true, that thing actually existing, is important to them. And I can understand that. That's why I kind of want to apologize in this video for any stepping on toes, which I've done in the previous videos in this little series, because I have a tendency to do that when I talk about this subject, just because, I have a lot of differing opinions on this. I have a lot of views on this, and I tend to approach it from a very analytical, probably hyper-analytical, over-analytical view. But I feel like it is still important to really try to understand the other person's beliefs and why they're important to them. In what could very well be a very scary universe and a very scary planet, Earth, scary life, I can see why people hold on to the idea of a all-loving God, because that sort of thing can get you through the day. I can see that. It lets you hold on to an eternal optimism that maybe you wouldn't think you would have without that belief. I know I've seen that in my own family with my own mom. So, I have my own sort of eternal optimism, which I hold on to for different reasons, but for Christians, for theists that believe in a personal God, I can see why they may view that God as being the one way that they can hold on to that eternal optimism. Now, even with everything I've said, and I've made a previous version of this video where I started to talk about what I'm going to talk about, I do still see problems with it, with looking to your God as, your one sole source of hope, of moral guidance. He is your arrow in all things. All truths can be found in your theistic belief, whether they're moral, metaphysical. Everything can be explained, can be found, can be directed by this belief in this being. And there's also the idea of the afterlife, which for Christians and I imagine Muslims as well, that also plays an important part of it, because the idea of an eternal afterlife where you could possibly, potentially, live in peace for the rest of eternity, I could see why believing in such a thing would give you hope, would give you, some reprieve from what you may be experiencing, which may be very, negative and painful. Again, I have issues with the afterlife, which I've already planned to talk about possibly for another video, but again, I could see how that would give you hope. Now, even with me saying all of this, I'm not saying that necessarily lends truth to the belief, but I can see why people hold that as important, for psychological reasons, for emotional reasons, for deeply personal reasons. It doesn't make the claims true, but I can see why believing them to be true is important to a person. And I'm going to get into another video. I'm going to get into it in another video when it comes to the afterlife, and probably when I talk about the afterlife, I'm going to talk about it in terms of my other video that I made, called Acceptance of Impermanence, because, you know, my acceptance of impermanence video, you know, the idea in that video, it stands in direct contrast to the belief in an afterlife. So I imagine at some point, as a sort of balance to that video, I also have to talk about the other review, which is in an eternal afterlife. Why can't I say acceptance of impermanence? Accept. I don't know. Sometimes I just can't speak. But I really just wanted to get that out there, because I could very easily get into why I don't find these beliefs particularly hopeful, at least from my perspective, like when it comes to morality, when it comes to the afterlife, when it comes to how believing in a perfect being and our sort of reverence to that perfect being and our recognizing our own imperfection in comparison to this perfect being, how that can sort of negatively affect your psyche. And I can get into all of that. I'm only going to mention it here because if I get into all of that, then this video could very well be over a half-hour long. But I'd rather save that for future videos where I can talk about each thing as in its own video, and that way make more videos, but also shorter videos. I'll just be talking about pieces of a topic instead of an overarching topic that can take me all of forever to cover. My last video was almost 30 minutes long after cutting it down because the topics which I was talking about were so large, and I didn't even really cover it all in that 27-minute period. So I guess this is just sort of my way of saying that if you're a theist and you believe in a God because it gives you hope, I get it. I only really have a problem with theists who try to push their beliefs on others or who attack atheists like me, which, let's be honest, they aren't too many, but they are very vocal, and there are, you know, Christians who want to push their beliefs on others who do hold power, who are vocal, who pose a bit of a problem for people of other faiths, but people also of no faith like myself. So, you know, it's not relevant in the case of everyone, but it is relevant in the case of certain people who, you know, make their presence and their beliefs known and try to push them on others, and that's still a problem. And you see it right now, the Supreme Court in their backing of Hasidic Jews gathering in a room with like 300 people in it, and they're holding a wedding, and there's a pandemic going on, and they're not wearing masks, and their religious beliefs are superseding the very real health concerns. And that's because we have like a conservative court undermining public health concerns so as to sort of how do I say it, facilitate this sort of religious laissez-faire approach to life. I don't even know how to put it. It's sort of like the Supreme Court is giving them a license to do what they want because they can attach some sort of religious excuse to it. Anyways, if I start to get into that, this video will go on and on and on forever, and I can easily do that in separate videos, so that's what I'm going to do so that this can be short and watchable. The last thing I want to mention is that, and this is the thing that I mentioned in the previous video, the previous version of this video, it helps that your all-loving God is also all-powerful, because an all-loving God can essentially solve all your problems, can deal with all your enemies, can, you know, if your God is all-powerful, then he can solve all issues. He can right all wrongs. So if he's all-powerful, then any problem which you have, he has the power to solve it. Any issue or any ill, any evil in all of the cosmos, all of the universe, he has the power to set right. And when you believe in a God that's that powerful, who is also all-loving or, just or cares, then, I can also see why why a person would want to hold on to the belief in such a God. It gives you this sort of comforting embrace of an all-powerful being, that represents beauty and light and everything within itself. It's another reason why I could see why someone would believe in it. It's very appealing. And that's just to sort of cover the power aspect, because this video is, after all, named Conceiving of the Divine, Powerful and Personal. If your God isn't all-powerful, then the amount of issues that he can resolve for you, or ills or wrongs that he can set right, are minimized. So you would much rather believe in a God who is all-powerful rather than sort of maximally powerful, or like he's alright sort of powerful. You know what I mean. And I'll see you in the next video, which will hopefully be my video on my sort of follow-up to the appreciation of nature from an atheist point of view, which I am going to name One with the Cosmos, because I like going with these very hippie, sort of Buddhist referencing sort of titles. I mean, this whole video series uses kaleidoscope images and nature images, so I am going for a bit of a hippie, almost sort of acid trip looking vibe to this channel, because, why not? It's fun. But yeah, I'm gonna end it there, and hopefully I can cut this down to something reasonable. Bye.